Hello, how are you?
Before I begin talking about the Ford Performance Pro-Calibration tune, it's with some sadness that I talk about the fact that I have sold my 1999 limited edition Mustang. Very sad. It's very sad. You can see behind me all the trophies that it won. It was a national champion, show car 3 times. Here's some video of the car being loaded on the trailer. So in tribute to my car, I put together thought I'd put together some drone footage in tribute to my car. Here we go.
Doing?
Okay, I'm sorry about that. I had to use the model that Ford gave me when I bought my Mustang because when I sold my Mustang, they came for it right away. In fact, I didn't even have a chance to drive in it one last time. And I don't have a drone anyway. I don't know why people waste their money on those. They get nice footage, but you could better spend that money on upgrades to your vehicle. And now that I have a little extra money from selling my Mustang, I am going to go big turbo.
You're not getting a big turbo!
I'm getting a big turbo.
No big turbo!
Please like the video if you'd like to see me install a big turbo. She's coming around to it. We'll just have to work on her a little bit more about that. But anyway, what we're really here to talk about is the Ford Performance Pro-Calibration tune and spark plugs. In case you need a reminder, when I first had the FR1 Performance Pack installed, this is kind of a summary of what it looked like.
Holy Lord! Oh my God! Oh man! Wow! Wow! Woo! Oh my God! Oh, does that sound good? Wow! Oh my God! Nice!
You see here, we have the graph of the difference between stock and when this tune is installed. You can see that it doesn't increase the horsepower at all. It remains the max horsepower is 252, but what it does is make the 252 horsepower available not just at one point, but it levels it out so it's available through several thousand RPMs and not just one point. That it pulls the horsepower up faster, much lower RPMs, revs really nice. You'll also see that it greatly increases torque. 360 foot-pounds of torque. I have to tell you, it really just rips off the wheels and tires when you start out. Probably going to have to get some more grippier tires. Yeah, more grippier tires. So our first question is, how is this tune? Especially compared to other tunes. I'm only going to compare it to the Monsoon tune. I know there's many others. There's the Stratified tune and there's the Cobb tune, and they're pretty similar to the Monsoon in that they're increasing the torque and the horsepower. You can see that here from this diagram of the Monsoon torque curve. You can see it's pretty much the same exact curve, except it's steeper, higher, and better. Now I'm going to present a bunch of graphs that's going to bore people. So if you're bored with graphs, just go ahead and skip over this part with the graphs. Anyway, here's the horsepower. Now I have the normal Ford tune, which is in blue. Then I have the FR1 Power Pack tune, the Pro Calibration, that's in red. And then I have the Monsoon is in gray here. The FR1, it brings the horsepower up much better in the lower RPMs. Your horsepower is much higher at the lower RPMs. For the Monsoon, it has much more horsepower because it takes it up to 275. But it doesn't exceed this tune until about 4,500 RPMs. So above that range, Monsoon is much better. As far as horsepower in the lower range, this is much better. And that's why when I took it to the dealership and they drove it, they found it to be so much more noticeable, because it really gives you power and it's much more linear and it's much more quicker. Now to go on to the torque graph, you can see again about 4,500. The Monsoon tune is much better, but the Ford FR1 tune, again, much higher in the lower revs. In fact, it has a much higher peak, 360 foot-pounds at lower RPMs, and then the torque comes down as you're going higher. Incredibly torquey tune. So which is better, torque or horsepower? Torque is what gets you off the line. Horsepower is what gets you to the finish line. Both torque and horsepower are very important. Autocross, generally, I would say torque is probably more important because you're generally at lower speeds and you're just accelerating, and you need to accelerate as quick as possible. Big track, horsepower is much more important, I believe. But no matter which way I looked at these, torque, horsepower, in either case, this tune is much better in the lower RPMs, much torquier and faster, and in the higher RPMs, it's not as good. The throttle response is incredible, so that's the big difference there. It definitely goes, and here you can see that in this video of me just taking off from a light. It changes the boost from 21 foot-pounds to 28 foot-pounds. And it's not just a simple overboost condition either, as you can see in this video. Literally has the boost gauge pegged at 30 foot-pounds. I don't know how accurate the gauge is, but it's supposed to be 28 pounds. But you can see that it's not a temporary overboost condition. That is literally the boost at all times. And I can't even describe to you how much that boost really throws you back in the seats. Make sure you have the ST3 Recaro seats for that, because it will really throw you around. And now I drag race myself just to show you what it was like before stock, which will be the left lane, and what it is after the tune, which is the right lane. I tried to do the same set of highways, but the first one I did originally, I did on the turnpike, and now it's under construction, so I couldn't do it exactly where it was. So I tried to duplicate it as much as I could. Wish we had one of those scantily clad ladies that dropped a handkerchief or something to start the race. But I just have this drag racing tree that'll start it off. So there you can see that basically in the stock configuration, I did about 7.2 seconds, 0 to 60, and then 6.6 seconds, 0 to 60 with the tune. So it's about 0.6 seconds. And I did many different runs. And in fact, the tune way, it was actually on a hot, humid day. The other one was on a nice, cool day. So it should have ran better. And you can tell by my driving, I'm not very good at getting it. Especially with the new tune. You really got to launch correctly, and there I definitely spun way too much tire. You could stamp on the car before and it would just go, and now it has so much power. She likes to be wined and dined a little bit. You just can't jump on her now. Let's watch this race again in slow motion, give you some idea of what's happening here. See, as we take off here, the actual stock configuration is much faster out of line because the wheels aren't spinning as much. and actually shifts faster from first to second. But then the tune picks up much faster as it goes along. It'll shift from second to third much quicker, and as it overtakes the stock configuration and crosses the line, just 0.6 seconds ahead. The tune is much more powerful, much quicker than the other. It's just a matter of dialing in that spin. More torquey, much faster, definitely quicker. Next, how does it do with gas mileage? Everybody's worried about gas mileage. How does it perform? And now we have a chart here that kind of goes over that. If you look at the chart here, I have 4 different conditions. Highway driving is just cruising along the turnpike with the cruise control set. Limited turbo is just trying to access that turbo as little as possible. Drive like grandma. Then I did normal driving. It was just me driving how I normally drive. And that includes my commute to work, which means sitting in traffic. Idiot from time to time, but not all the time. And then juiced boost was me just driving around like as much as I could, like a complete idiot, as much as I could. Hey, if you look at the chart here, my highway mileage actually went up. It actually was 33.3 miles per gallon, and it should only be like 31. In fact, I went to Utah, and during that trip, I averaged between 28 and 31. It depended on the mountains and whether the wind was blowing in our face or behind us. But basically, that's what it was. And now I'm getting about 33.3 on the highway. So at highway speeds, it's an improved. Limited turbo, where you're accessing it as little as possible. Gas mileage went up. Next was normal mode, and my gas mileage has gotten worse than that. I'm just barely over 20. I used to get somewhere in the 23s. And juice boost, that used to be about 20 to 22, but it's down to probably 17 and a half. When you're accessing the power, it gets worse gas mileage. It really sucks up the gas when you're all over it all the time. What about the cold spark plugs? You may be wondering about those. These are the cold spark plugs, which apparently, according to Ford, are 2 temperature ranges below the regular spark plugs in the car. This is the spark plug they took out of my car. And if you look at it, it is really fouled. There's all kinds of junk on there. But these are the regular spark plugs, and they run hotter. And these other ones that they installed, they run much cooler. Actually, this tune is all about cool. You can look at this video here, and it's just a shot of my oil temperature gauge. It runs much cooler. I don't think it's just these spark plugs. It's also the fact that it's getting cold air from outside the motor with that cold air induction kit on it. It's also the fact that the muffler on it's high flow. With the ST Octane Academy, they put that Ford Performance exhaust on the car to get it to not overheat as much. And cold is so much important. Ask anybody that has running nitrous oxide in their car. Cold is much better. This tune turns off the Composer from the software. All engine sounds that you hear from my car from now on, it's just the regular sound from the exhaust because that Composer has been turned off. And another one is, if you'll just watch this video, when I shift from second to third, you'll see the shift light come on when the revs are all the way up. It reprograms your shifter light to not be at the highest point of best gas mileage. It actually does it at the point of highest performance. And see it again in slow motion. That's a really nice feature because I hated that shift light coming on all the time. It's just horrible. Who's trying to get the most gas mileage out of their Focus ST? Nobody. Maybe somebody. If they bought the wrong car by accident. But if you're buying a Focus ST, you don't care about the gas mileage. You would have bought a Prius. Anyway, that's my review. That's all the parts in the FR1 power pack and all the sub parts that I did. I have some other videos of some things to install. Like the video if you'd like me to install the big turbo. I gotta go big turbo. God bless.